Welcome to the Good Food Podcast with me, Samuel Goldsmith. I'm thrilled today to be joined by, I was going to say co-founder of Wildfarmed, but actually when I asked you, you said to call you, was it a mate absolutely died to the wall?
Exactly, yeah.
But especially, I'm very happy to be joined by you because it's also our 500th episode. So
congratulations!
Thank you, George, for joining.
500 of anything is really hard to do, man. Well done.
It's a slog.
Yeah.
Right. What did you have for dinner last night?
It wasn't particularly. We had, you know what? Actually, we had a vichyssoise, which is like just cold leek and potato soup. Certainly that's what my missus is selling as vichyssoise, and then we had a kind of Asian slaw. It was a bit of a kind of picky dinner last night.
Picky tea.
Yeah,
like a heightened picky tea.
Yeah,
that does. Yeah, it's not the picky tea that I feel some people might be used to. Like what, those little smiley potatoes.
You know what? But I mean, like, I'm down for whatever. Like we had fish fingers, and we're actually quite pleased. We had fish fingers. They didn't have any peas, so we had fish fingers and samphire, and then we did some little kind of chopped up fried potatoes.
Very nice.
The night before. So,
and do you cook any of this?
Half and half.
Okay, cool.
Maybe 70-30 in my favour. I'm doing. Okay. I'm the kind of main cook in the house.
Interesting. And where did that love of cooking come from then? If it is a love of cooking,
my mum, and I suppose before her, my granny. You know, I mean, it's an age-old story, isn't it? You know, but like my mum I don't know if she is a really good cook anymore, but she was an exceptional cook, and long before it was trendy, and long before we had like real, high food literacy and culinary literacy in this country, she was kind of drizzling and flaking and just kind of like. It was always very, she wouldn't put lots on your plate, and it would always be quite fine and thought through and interesting flavours, and so she brought me up to have quite a refined palate. I went to like the local school when I was a kid, and the teacher always said to my mum, like we knew George was different when everybody was asked what their favourite vegetable was, and they were going around doing potato, carrot, whatever, and I was like mange tout.
Oh dear.
So yeah, my mum's to blame for it.
And then she got that from her mum.
She got, she grew up in a strong food culture in the house where like everybody came back. My mum's. Well, actually, I shouldn't say how old my mum is, but whatever. She's old enough that you came home from lunch. You came home from school for lunch, and home from work for lunch. Yeah. Everybody came back, so you were having 3 meals a day, sitting as a family. So really, like the mum, unfortunately, my granny was basically a cook. You know, and so even when I was growing up, you had the same meals every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There was a menu basically, and it just stayed the same, and it just rolled through. Yeah.
So that, I guess it made it easier for you, really.
Yeah. But like my granny made soup, as far as I know, like she made soup pretty much every day of her life. Or at least a few days a week, and then it was so every time the first thing when you walked into my granny's house was, do you want a wee bit of soup? Everybody, hi, how do you want a wee bit of soup?
Was she Scottish?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So did she stay in Scotland, or
she lived in Scotland? My mum left when she was in her 30s, but we'd spend every holiday. So like literally, we were one of them. Like the day after we finished school, I'd go up to Scotland the day before we started. I come back. So like half my childhood was spent in Scotland.
Whereabouts?
In Dundee on the east coast.
Okay, so that's a lot of seafood and stuff as well.
There wasn't. I mean, you'd have fish on a Friday, but it wasn't particularly. It was a lot of mince and tatties.
Yeah.
It was a lot of soup. She used to do like, my granddad loved potted hoch, which is like kind of like I don't know, like a kind of meat patty, I guess. And then what else would she do? You'd have like just like really lovely. There's a place called Goodfellow and Stevenson, still going, like one of these bakers that's been going on for like 300 years or whatever. And they used to do the most amazing morning rolls. Like Scottish rolls are really incredible, really light, fluffy, kind of voluptuous, cloud-like rolls. And then you just jam it full of everything at lunch, and crisps and ham and
sounds amazing,
beetroot and whatever.
Yeah, I didn't realise. I kind of thought you were like 100% Cockney.
I mean,
But it's
yeah,
good to know.
100%. I sound 100% Cockney. My dad is. I don't even know. I think we have to go a few generations back
Yeah.
to find like bona fide Cockneys, because you know you've got to be born within the sound of the Bow Bells. That's the whole thing. And so, like when my dad did "Who Do You Think You Are,"
Yeah.
and all of like as far as they could get back, all of our people were out of Whitechapel, which you'd be a bona fide Cockney there.
Okay.
But then he ended up. They got moved out. They got moved out after the war to Harlow, which was like a new town. And my granddad opened a fish and chip shop there. So like my dad will often regale anyone who'll listen with stories about how he first, it was his second job. His first job was to learn how to make the tea, and scald the teapot and all the rest of it at age 5. You wouldn't teach kids that now, would you?
No.
And then age 7, he was put on fish filleting, basically. Oh, wow. So yeah.
Wow, we'll have to get him on one day. Talk about fish fillet. Get him to do it for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if we can remember how to do it.
But I want to talk about Wildfarmed as well, because say you're co-founder of Wildfarmed, and that's not your first job.
Certainly not.
How did you get to that point?
I mean, well, it depends how far you want to go back. But like, I came through. I knew. My mum was an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
My dad, obviously an actor, wasn't around a normal 9-to-5 kind of setup, and so knew I wanted to do something different. Ended up went to college and met a crew of people who were into dance music. Fell heavily in love with dance music. Ended up managing some of the guys, and we had a band called the Audio Bullies, and we went around the world and had a great time. Amazing. And then in my mid-20s, I was just kind of like trying to pull my scrambled brain back together and figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life, and then fell into television presenting, and then gradually that rolled into game show hosting, basically, because if you follow the money in television, you basically end up what's called shiny floor. And because I just stumbled into it, I didn't have a deep passion for, kind of science or technology or history or whatever. And I was just like, whatever, how much, and did that for a few years. And then I just frankly wasn't making my heart sing, and just really struggling to kind of reconcile the whole thing with myself, and just like, what am I doing with my life? I didn't know what I was meant to be doing, but I was 100% confident that my star hadn't been pulled out of the ether to be a game show host, And I'm not trying to, throw shade on game show hosts. Like if you're into it and it works for you, good, power to you. But it just wasn't for me.
Because I think I heard, or was listening to another interview where you said, like, on one of the shows, was it the Big Drop? I want to say Big Drop, that's not right.
Big Drop. It was called, what was it called? It was called The Bank Job.
The Bank Job. I was getting confused with Davina's £1 Million Drop.
Yes.
You do look, similar.
Very similar, yeah.
And you'd said almost had a sort of light bulb moment during the show.
Yeah, I just was watching this whole thing unfold, and I was just like, we were in a kind of fake bank built inside a real bank. And the whole I can't remember who. I think it was ITV at the time were running away with kind of television, basically, and they were doing everything live. So Channel 4 were like, we need to do everything live, and so we were doing this live game show, but it wasn't structured like a £1 Million Drop, where so if you do any live game shows, you just run it to time, and then you literally go, okay, guys, I'm afraid time's up. That's all we got time for. We'll be back next week. Join us. And you just that's how you run it. Whereas this thing, they were trying to do like a whole set of rounds, and then a kind of eliminator with a quarterfinal and a semi-final and a final, going all the way through live.
Yeah.
So the whole way through, depending on how quickly you answer the question, or the contestants would answer the questions when they buzzed in, or how long they'd pause for, or or if someone got on a run, the whole way through, I got someone saying to me, slow it down, speed it up, slow it down, speed it up, speed it up, and then I'm trying to listen to what they're saying. Someone's going like, we got 2 minutes to the break, and like 2 minutes in television's a long time to fill.
Yeah.
So then you're there walking around saying like, okay, so let's just have a little recap now. If square 48 comes up and it's lower than 3,000, then Michael's going through. However, and they're going, 40 seconds, this is great, keep it going, George, you know what I mean? And I was just having this kind of freak out on live television, and I was just like, what am I doing? like, what am I doing myself? You know, and then actually really what happened, if you want the absolute truth, is I would go out in the evening and if I went into a room full of wealthy people, no one had ever seen me before. And I got to like a reasonable level of fame. I was kind of like, I was like top of the middle. I wasn't quite in the top sector, but I was in the like kind of.
You host like Big Brother's Little Brother, which was huge,
and so a lot of people knew who I was. But if I went into a room full of wealthy people who are making big decisions in the world, you could see it, just the eye, like the register, like people didn't know who I was. If I went into a room full of normal working people, everybody knew me, everybody knew my dad. And what dawned on me was the people with influence in the world aren't sitting at home watching game shows. They're out carving the world up for themselves. And so all of a sudden, I felt like I was complicit in selling distraction to a bunch of people who don't need distraction. And actually, if you're lucky enough to have a voice and you're lucky enough to be able to create, you know, kind of attention and energy and interest, you should be trying to utilize your powers to do good things rather than just be complicit in some nonsense that is not pushing things forward.
So then you took a big break. You just basically...
So then I renounced all worldly goods, had a proper eat, pray, love, went off to the east, kind of disappeared for a couple of years, was ready just about with all my kind of like with George 2.0, all my downloads to come back into the UK and like, you know, try and figure out what the new me looked like. And just as I was heading back, I thought, you know what, I might just have one last hurrah. And I rented a house in Ibiza and I stayed there for the summer. And a few weeks into that, Buddy said to me, "You got to come." My mate's DJing. He's an amazing guy called Andy Cato. He's got a band called Groove Armada. I knew them vaguely from back in the clubbing days. Well, I kind of knew Andy vaguely. You know what I mean? But but we didn't really know each other. But I knew him, kind of thing. You know, and I knew of And anyway, we go into this club, and I see this man, and I'm a big dude, but like Andy's 6'9", and he looked absolutely broken, but not Ibiza wild 5-day bender broken, just actually like man on the edge. And I went over to him and I was like, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Not really." And I was like, "What's going on?" And he was like, "I sold my publishing rights or like the pension, my pension basically, to buy a farm down in Gascony, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I bought this knackered farm, and I've been trying to bring it back, doing this thing called regenerative agriculture, you know." And imagine, and the lasers and the smoke and all. And I'm like, "Sorry, mate, what are you doing? Regenerative what?" You know. And he started to just explain everything he was doing and why he was doing it, and the fact he'd read this article about the unforeseen consequences of the industrial food system, the fact it was wrecking the planet. It ended with a line, "If you don't like the system, don't depend on it." He took it, you know, on its, you know, on face value, started having a bash at self-sufficiency. So there was this kind of like, I've always got this image of Andy sitting in a green room waiting to go on DJ and going through John Seymour's, you know, guide to self-sufficiency, basically.
Watching The Good Life.
Yeah, exactly. You know, on his and then going out into this club. But so met him. Kind of realised actually this kind of guru I guess I'd been looking for, or whatever it was I was looking for, I was like, I think this is it actually, you know. And so he was coming back every week. He'd taken a residency. He'd kind of stopped DJing for a few years, but he'd taken a residency because he was going to go bankrupt, and so he needed to earn some money to prop up all the kind of experiments that were going on the farm. He would come back, we'd have dinner each week, he'd explain more. By the end of the summer, I drove up through Spain, went into France, went to his farm, met the family, saw the kind of scale of what he was trying to do, and pretty much there and then just put my hand out and said, "Look, I don't know how I can help. I don't know anything about farming, but I believe in you and I believe in what you're trying to do, and I think it's really important. I know how to tell stories and I can bring energy to stuff, and I feel like I can help you." And so that was the beginning, very, you know, earlier, you know, Wildfarmed was barely a twinkle in our eye at that stage, but that was the first bit where I kind of committed to doing something, and then it became apparent quite quickly that neither he or I were very business savvy. And then one of my best mates back in the UK. He'd been working in the financial markets for years. He had 2 young children. He was struggling to explain what like high volatility, equity derivative, future, blah, 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 whatever they are, stocks are. I still don't understand it myself, let alone a kind of 6-year-old. And so I could see he was kind of ripe for change. And so I kept on encouraging him to come to France and meet Andy and see the farm. And then gradually he came down there. And once you meet Andy, and once you've been to the farm and you've stood in a field where there's life and vitality back in a place where, unfortunately, the vast majority of our food is grown in a kind of ecological dead zone. And so when you go onto a neighbouring farm, stand in a field, literally walk 10 metres across to the right, and you'd be like, okay, I see what's going on. And we both kind of got the bug, and that was the kind of beginning, I guess, of Wildfarmed.
And that farm, I think we spoke to him before, and it's like 80 years of just sort of been used up.
It had 80 years of conventional maize on it. He unfortunately, because Andy was a first generation farmer, he didn't know what he was looking for, so he didn't know to do any soil analysis of the farm. And so when he retrospectively did this soil analysis, he found out that it only had 0.5% organic matter, which basically means it's infertile.
Wow. And what do you know what percentage you are looking for?
You'd be 3, 5, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, I mean that as a kind of baseline, and so he started off farming organically, but because there was nothing to work with, it just wasn't happening. And he was in this kind of war of attrition with all the docks and the weeds. And what you find out, like retrospectively, is actually if you speak plant, weeds are actually your friend. They're signaling, they're telling you what you're lacking. If you understood it, you'd know that particular kind of weed, inverted commas, is actually telling you you're lacking in potassium or magnesium or cobalt. And so it's telling you what you need, but we didn't speak plant at that time. And so he was just trying to smash it all back with machinery. And then I think he was probably 2 or 3 years in. When you're a first-generation farmer, there's a lot of zeros on your checks, and Groove Armada was successful, but they weren't Oasis, so there was a cap on how long this thing could go on for. And so he was about to jack it in, and he was back in the UK, and he found this book called An Agricultural Testament by a guy called Sir Albert Howard, who was one of the founding fathers of the organic movement, along with Lady Balfour. And the basic thesis of the book is that plants and animals have developed over millennia and work in perfect symbiosis. And when you separate them, you take a perfect solution, you create all sorts of problems. And so rather than chop it in and sell the farm, he was like, let's have one last roll of the dice. And that was 40 head of red Sussex cattle. And the cattle came on, and they ate, and they stomped, and they pooped, and stomped and pooped and ate. And they're nature's composting machine. They know exactly what to do. And within a year or so, the vitality was back on the farm, and there were birds and bees and butterflies. And you were like, okay, you can see it.
That's amazing, isn't it?
And that's kind of, we were getting there around that time, basically.
And then you went from France to a National Trust farm?
Yeah, so both Ed and I don't speak French, and so we were limited on how much we could help down there. And also there was this kind of this feeling of like, what are we in this for? Like he'd modeled, he built a kind of pin-up regenerative farm. We were sitting in the yard one night looking at the adjacent field of the neighbour, and there were all these big white patches in the kind of newly harvested field. And so I said to Andy, what's the deal with the white patches? And he said, that's bedrock. And I was like, what do you mean bedrock? And he was like, that's the rock where the soil should be, and the rock's poking through because it's had all this, 80 years of conventional whatever on it, and it's wrecked it. And so you've got erosion going on, real-time desertification. And we're only 2 hours south of London, right? Down near Toulouse. And so we were like, right, so this is like, we've got real-time desertification happening. If you think about it, I might be getting this wrong, but but I'm pretty sure the Roman Empire, one of their big wheat producing areas was what is now the Saharan desert. It might have been a civilization before the Romans, but let's just say let's go with the Romans. And then you've got desertification happening, and now it's a massive desert. And so that similar thing is happening just down in the southwest of France. Like all of a sudden that set alarm bells ringing. Like we're running out of ecological road.
Yeah.
We've got to try and sort this thing out. And so we encourage Andy to come back to the UK. Let's see if we can try and scale this thing.
Yeah.
People or certainly then the feeling was that regenerative was small scale. It was mom and pop. It was very much looking backwards. And what we were trying to say is, for sure, it's ancient wisdom, but it's also got a lot of modern technology, adjacent to it. And like, how do we take all this ancient wisdom and bring it into today's world and find a way to infiltrate the infrastructures that exist? And we came back. Andy got a National Trust farm, about 800-acre farm, about 20 minutes outside Swindon. And then we went round and we talked to all the regenerative guys in the UK and said, look, we're thinking of doing this thing. Would you be interested in coming under the banner? They were delighted to do that. And then gradually, once you build trust in these kind of insular farming communities, it's hard to build the trust. But once you get in there, then of course all of their brothers, uncles, cousins, granddads, whatever, are also farmers. So then they call them and say, "Listen, we're working with these guys, and they're legit, and they do what they say they're going to do, and they pay on time, basically, which is what most people care about in life." And so Wild Farm began, basically, and we're now up to about 150 farmers around the UK. And our whole thing was about, how do we democratise real food? How do we get this onto the high street? We started off working with the artisan community, and the kind of incredible ambition that was going on in the field was met by these brilliant bakers who were working tirelessly round the clock, being brave enough to change all their baking practices, to bringing a new flour in, trying the flour, and then kind of influencing a next tier of chefs who really understand the importance of provenance of your food, and then gradually then putting that out into a kind of broader food culture and working onto the high street, and then we've got kind of two worlds. So we've got our grocery line, which is like a fully branded Wild Farm.
You can buy bread and flour.
You can buy bread and flour and buns and rolls and all the rest of it, or we'll sell you flour, and that goes in like into an ingredient, our kind of ingredient business, I suppose. We've been very clear that this thing only works if we get everybody doing it and everybody being part of it. Like, we don't want this to be a little niche thing on the side, a kind of nice to have. Like, you're not going to change landscapes at scale, at pace, by doing that. And so having an opportunity to work with people like Shake Shack and Frank and Manca and Ask and Nando's a bit now, and so on and so forth, like, you're talking to hundreds of thousands of millions of people each year, and they've been kind enough to kind of recognize the importance of our message, and so putting that front and center on a lot of their kind of menus and call out boards and all the rest of it. So.
And actually, I think, like, I was talking to someone from Shake Shack, and they were saying that it's not an easy sell to like board level when you're at a company that big. So I think they have to really believe in it and know that what they're doing is making a decision to use a product that is better for the planet.
Yeah. Well, people going out their way, basically.
Yeah.
And that, I think, actually, we've seen all the way through this process, like from the beginning, the growers having to try something different. Then you give this stuff to the bakers who are like, I'm already built into the way I do things, man. Cool, why don't you try something different?
Yeah.
Then you're going out to the buyers in these companies and saying, listen, I know it's a bit more expensive, because the reality is today we're working hard to get the price down, and we're light years on from where we were. But like, if you're going to pay the farmer properly, and everybody in the supply chain is going to get an equitable share, and you're not going to just rinse the planet. Like, it costs a little bit more.
Yeah, it can't be as cheap as
that's the reality of the situation. Food prices, unfortunately, have been for a long time illusory. We're not paying the right price for stuff. And so asking people to be brave and see the value in it and take that jump. Like, it's a big thing, and what we've been met with at every turn of this whole thing is and I believe it's because we're coming from a source of truth, basically, because we're doing something that's right, and it fundamentally, and we understand it as humans. It's built into us. Like, we are, whether we want to accept it or not, like, we're nature, we're part of it, And so the best sales pitch I can give for Wildfarmed is, the same thing that happened to me, which is not to sit here and wang on at you, but is actually just to take you to a field and stand you in it, and stand you in a conventional field 10 meters away, and then just walk you across, and you stand there, and we just say, just be quiet, just listen, just watch, just feel it for a second. And before you know it, you'll just start seeing the things alive. Whereas if you go across to a conventional field, it'll be totally sterile. And immediately everybody goes, right, okay, I get it.
That's amazing.
You know, and so that feeling, some way, somehow, is kind of permeating all these decision-making process for everybody. And like when we start working with people, we always say, like, even if they want to come in and just do a small amount, we're like, yeah, sure, come and do it, no problem. Because what we know is everybody who works with us, you just, something gets you, and you're like, oh, what if we do some other lines? What if we could do this? Wouldn't it be great if we could do all of it? And we're like, yeah, sounds good, man. You know. So,
what do you think the future of farming will look like?
I think it looks something akin to wild farming, something to like we're doing. You know, like nature and food have been put in opposition for the last 100 years. For millennia, that wasn't the case, and so after World War II, we could see a clear route to 8 billion people. Everybody was freaking out about how we were going to feed them. We'd already had the Industrial Revolution. We'd had heavily mechanized farming. We know the Dust Bowls in America were already happening. We'd wrecked a lot of the soil biology. Then we had this massive surplus of chemicals after World War II. They were like, maybe we should try some of this nitrogen on here. Oh, look at that. That works. You know what I mean? Couple that with big chemical inputs and an over-reliance on a chemical industry. And unfortunately, what's happened is we're now creating this food that looks roughly like the same food we were creating 100 years ago, but actually it's devoid of all the nutrients and the life and the vitality of the food that was grown naturally. And it's a kind of synthetic version of it. And so now we're getting sick, and actually, you know, obesity is as big a problem as malnutrition, you know, and like, that's just a madness.
It is mad.
So yes, what do I think is the future of farming? I think food and nature being grown in the same place or working in the same place is totally achievable. We're literally proving that. And so that's what we've got to hope for. And I feel, certainly since I've taken an interest in the space, that our food literacy has jumped massively. I think Jamie Oliver can take a massive pat on the back for that, and Delia Smith and those who went before, you know. But the people are now demanding a much higher level of food. You know, once, you know, even when I was a kid, I'm sure, you know, Britain would have been scoffed at internationally as a you know, kind of our food offering or our food culture. And now there's, you know, per capita, we'll have some of, or, you know, the best restaurants in the world, basically. You know,
is it possible, do you think, to do it and feed as many people as you need to feed?
Without doubt.
Yeah.
I think there's two kind of key things you've got to look at. There is a lot about nutritional density. And so like feeding people empty calories, like we you know, just ask the NHS how that's working out. And then similarly, we've got to look at food waste. If we're chucking away more than half of the food we're producing, that would suggest we've got the wrong system, you know? So if we can start making food that's, you know, I don't know the numbers, but, you know, people will band around an apple 100 years ago is worth 5 apples today or whatever, you know, like, and it will be something akin to that across the whole board.
The nutritional value because of how we're growing now.
Yeah, well, just, you know, like if you imagine, like, the genesis point of all life on Earth is functioning soil biology, right? All of the nutrients that the plant needs should be in the soil. So the plant takes the nutrients out of the soil. We eat the plant, or we eat the animal that eats the plant, and we get our nutrients and we're healthy.
Sure.
Right? If the nutrients aren't in the soil because the soil's dead, or the plant is compromised in its ability to get the nutrients, then we're not going to be getting them. And yet, from above ground, the plant looks healthy. Well, actually, what's happening is we've been giving the plants on the meds. It's been given steroids. You know, so it's not actually like farmer strong. It's kind of like bodybuilder strong, basically. You know.
So, obviously, you've co-founded Wildfarmed, but that wasn't your first foray into, like, I suppose farming is probably not the right word, but kind of produce, because I was reading that you presented Young Butcher of the Year.
I did actually. Funnily enough, I was doing Silos 10 years old. Dougie McMaster's restaurant, and so Young Butcher of the Year was part of a series called Young Whatever of the Year on the BBC, exactly, and one of them was also Young Chef, and Dougie won the Young Chef of the Year all those years ago, 2006, 7, 8, whatever it was, and then I was back with him in his restaurant Silo, which was the world's first waste-free restaurant, and you know, talking about the amazing work that he was doing, and so that Young Butcher of the Year. Also, I think the winner of Young Butcher of the Year is now the head butcher at the Newt, who's a Wildfarmed customer. So cool. All their bakery there is done with Wildfarmed, and so there's definitely been a lot of crossover. Connection. My mum, when the other night actually, I said to her, I'm going to do this thing for Dougie, and my mum was like, sausage o'clock. Because there was something in this Butcher of the Year, and I for some reason said, it's sausage o'clock, and then Harry Hill absolutely tore me a new one. So
on TV Bird.
I
have to have a look for that clip.
Yeah.
Love that. And then you did, because obviously you stepped away from television, but more recently you did go back to do the TV show with your dad, Britain by Bike.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. Me and my mum, like so many mums, did all the heavy lifting, and so my dad and I basically got to be friends, and so we get to, getting an opportunity to hang out with him is great, and so we went and we toured around. We did 10 areas of outstanding national beauty, and just a kind of standard travelogue. You go and you work with people, local producers, people, farriers and sheepdog trainers, and people taking you on mad expeditions and abseiling and taking boats out, and it was great, really, like kind of joyous celebration of everything that's wonderful about Britain. And I was definitely guilty of, I'd be someone who was desperate to get on a plane and get away as quick as I could, and always looking kind of outwardly for what's for the magic. And then, we were talking a bit at the beginning, like that whole Pembrokeshire coast is as beautiful as anywhere I've ever been, and had it not been for Britain by Bike, I wouldn't have known about it. So
wow. And because you're not doing another series of that, but
they canned it after 2 series basically, and I don't know if my dad could do a bike show anymore. Like, he's pretty old. We were joking the other day about how we did Gogglebox the other day, and Long Way Round, the
with Ewan McGregor
one, Charlie Boorman, and there was a couple they'd gone to see who had a bike with a sidecar, and my dad was like, here we go. He goes, you put me in the sidecar, you drive the motorbike, we could do Britain by Bike again. You know what I mean? So who knows?
Be much more entertaining.
I think it
Him
would.
Getting in and out of that.
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty cool.
All right, we're going to move on to our next section now, which is my favourite dish.
Yeah.
And that's quite as it sounds really. Have you got a favourite dish?
Yeah, vongole. Spaghetti vongole.
Oh, so clams.
Clams, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very simple dish, It's just oil and garlic and parsley and clams and a bit of white wine in there.
Do you, because we've got like a sister podcast, 5 O'Clock Apron, and one of her episodes with I think someone from the Royal National Ballet. They cook the clams and then they use that juice,
the jus,
to then cook the rest of it.
Yeah. I mean, you fry off your garlic.
Yeah.
And then you put with some chili in there, and then you put the clams in, and then you put the wine in, and then you kind of boil it all up, or whatever, cook it all up, and then you bring all your spaghetti or linguine through it, and that's you can, and then you got that kind of, the whole trick with all pasta is obviously getting that viscosity, trying to get the goo to bind onto the pasta, and so. Sometimes I get it right, and sometimes I don't. But I try very hard, and it really upsets me if I don't nail it.
Where did your love for that come from?
I don't know. I just like salt. I really like salt.
Okay.
I'm a kind of salt nut, and it's a salty one. That one. Like clams are pretty salty, basically.
And I guess you'll probably have some seawater trapped in there somewhere, and sand and all sorts.
Hopefully not too much sand. You've got to just leave your clams in some water. For maybe kind of 10 minutes beforehand, and then you give them all a little doink before they go in.
Yeah. So this other recipe that I was talking about, they cook the clams like you do, then they take the clams out, strain that juice so that you get the juice, but the sand is out.
But there shouldn't be any sand.
Because you'd have soaked your clams properly.
No, you soak them. Yeah, exactly. You soak them, and then you just whack them just to see if they're alive. But anyway, I'll if you can get me the recipe, I'll try it.
Find it for you. Right, I'm going to move on to culinary confessions. What is the one dish that you make better than anyone else?
My vegetable soup, which is my granny's soup, is pretty good.
What's the secret? Can you give it
real love, and a hell of a lot of butter, and I've been putting sprigs of rosemary in. I don't think my granny did, but it's a vibe.
Do you take them out then before, or would you blend them up?
Yeah, sometimes. But I also like let you as the participant. It's a kind of interactive, it's an immersive thing. You can pull them out.
Because there's one thing I hate is plucking like herb leaves, like rosemary or thyme. Right. Picking thyme leaves does my head in. Yeah. So I just chuck it in whole. And then, to be honest, the leaves fall off.
Yes, exactly. So, exactly. You just get these little kind of fronds, like
a bit of bite of flavour. What is your biggest cooking disaster?
We made in lockdown, obviously when everybody became semi-pro chefs, we made what was it? I was doing an ottolenghi falafel kind of recipe, and it was one of those ones with like 72 different ingredients, and you had to get it. And I don't know why I messed up, and I think I didn't use the right kind of chickpea or broad bean or whatever it was, and it had been soaked or they hadn't been soaked or whatever it was. I'd got the wrong thing, and so made these and made up all the rest of the meal, but the kind of the principal character was the falafel, and then I dropped the falafels into the boiling oil, and it kind of I don't know what was going on, but I thought it was all right, and it was all kicking off, and then I dropped another one and another one and another one, and gradually I started to kind of fish around for the first ones, and I was like, there's nothing in here. And then what I realised, obviously there was too much moisture, or too little moisture, but it must be too much moisture, and they just exploded. And so this whole thing, these kind of 2.5 hours that I'd spent putting this whole thing together was just eventually amounted to a kind of chickpea oil soup, crumb. Basically. And there was nothing to show for it. I was heartbroken.
And those were tough times.
They were tough times, exactly. Well, I was on the edge already.
Have you ever served something ready-made and pretended you made it yourself?
So there's an amazing Italian pastificio and restaurant called Burrisalvia on Red Church Street in Tower Hamlets or in Shoreditch, and she does, so you can go there and eat, but you can also take home the pasta. I never pretended that I made the pasta, but I certainly was ambiguous serving up the tiramisu a couple of times, and it's the best tiramisu you'll ever eat. So.
Love that. Do you have a food guilty pleasure?
I mean, I'm absolutely nuts for pastries and stuff, which when you've got a kind of flour business, it's a bit of a problem. You can really make peace. I've actually got to try this other almond croissant from this other bakery that we work with just to see if it's at the right level where it should be. And before you know it, you're kind of just jamming 5,000 pastries down your neck a week. So I've had to rail that back in a bit.
It's quite a bougie guilty pleasure as well, isn't it? Like a nice almond croissant.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm imagining because it's using Wildfarmed flour.
It's exceptional.
Yeah, of course it is. Well, before we move on to our next section, that seems like a fitting moment, talking of like pastries, cakes. As it's our 500th episode, I feel like we should have a little cake.
Yes,
which
so
is
we've
right
got
here.
This incredible cake that's just sitting above us, looking over us. What's the story with this? Has this been made with Wildfarmed flour?
Yeah, I made this.
You absolute legend.
It's made using Wildfarmed flour. Now, I'll be honest, I used bread flour
Yeah.
because that's what I had in my goodie bag from the Shake Shack event.
Ever. It'll be fine.
But I used a bit of baking powder.
Okay.
And it's got pistachios in, it's got matcha in, which is why it's green and Wildfarmed green. And there's another ingredient in there, which I'm not going to tell you about. And we'll see
I'm going to figure it
whether
out.
you can notice it or not.
Great. See if my palate is as refined as I thought it was.
But also, it's not really anyone's birthday, but as the guest, I feel like you should blow the candles out.
Please, with pleasure.
So I will do that now.
Shall I come to it?
No, I'll come to you unless you're scared I'm going to burn you.
No, not at all.
There you go.
Dude, 500 episodes is quite an amazing thing.
Yeah, I think so.
It really is.
It should be. Right,
So
I'll cut you a slice.
Yeah, cut me a slice, man. Oh, it's got a nice slice on it. Nice purchase.
I don't know if you'll find the secret ingredient.
That's really nice.
Is it all right?
Yeah. What is the secret ingredient? I can see the secret ingredient, but I don't know what it is yet. Hang on.
I don't know if you can see it.
No?
It's not. Oh,
Is that chunks of pistachio?
there are pecans because I ran out of pistachios.
Pistachios, right. I like
So there's
what you've
mix.
done here. You were like, what cake shall I make? Let's have a look what's in the cupboard.
Let's see what's green.
It's really nice.
Do you want to know what it is?
Well,
Frozen peas.
is it?
Yeah.
So what do the frozen peas do?
Well, colour, because I wanted to give you something
Yeah.
green, but also like a bit of sweetness and the texture. It's like a bit like how you're not necessarily getting the flavour because you might have carrots in a carrot cake, but it's not necessarily carrot.
Yeah, well, it brings the moisture as well, doesn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah, and
that's
a bit of sweetness,
yeah.
right. Great.
So yeah,
Good techers, man.
that's it.
That's delicious. Thank you.
Oh, good. No worries. Right, whilst you're eating that, I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions. What is the best kitchen tip you've ever been given?
Keep your knives sharp.
Very good. If you could only eat one cuisine for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Japanese. It's super varied. You know, you can get, you know, yeah, I think it's the most varied cuisine in the world.
Great.
And like the level of techers is
They are
just
yeah,
bananas.
yeah. And I think if you're over there as well, the quality of the produce as well.
Yeah.
It's amazing. If you could change one thing about the way we grow, buy, cook, or eat food in this country that would be better for the planet, what would it be?
Food and nature being grown together, the wild farm way.
If your personality was a flavour of ice cream, what would it be and why?
What's kind of big and loud, but like quite calm and and big and loud and sometimes a bit aggressive but generally trying to be a better person.
Matcha?
and is also quite gentle underneath and all the rest of it. Maybe matcha's not a bad shout. Like my favourite is pistachio by a long stretch.
I feel like that could also do that.
There's something in there telling me, you know, because you get quite a lot. It's quite brittle at the beginning. The experience with the pistachio. Sometimes they can be a real kind of duffer when you get in there and it's all just gone over a bit. It's quite salty.
Yeah.
But then there's also a kind of richness and a velvetiness to, I don't know, there's quite a lot of layers, basically. And I suppose I'd like to think of myself as quite a dynamic person with lots of layers.
It's onion ice cream then, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Everyone's favourite.
What ingredient is the biggest waste of money?
Caviar? I don't get it.
I went to a party recently.
And they put it on crisps or
On their
some
hand.
shit, whatever.
They put it on your hand. I'm like, what is that all about?
Yeah, it's nonsense.
Apparently that's the way you're supposed to do it.
Right.
A
Cool.
bump of caviar.
A bump of caviar, yeah, lovely.
Have you ever rescued something from the bin or the floor to avoid food waste?
I definitely like rake through the bin for like sugar that I've thrown out when I've had a kind of rush of blood to the head and thought I need to get off the sugar and thrown everything in the bin, and then you're like, what's it touched? Is it really that manky? Can I wash it off?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For sure.
Great. Is there a food you always eat on your birthday?
My birthday's just before Christmas.
Oh, okay.
So it's on the 20th. And so it's a kind of much often overlooked birthday.
No, how dare it?
Poor me. And so the last few years, my girlfriend and I have taken to just going and staying in a nice hotel.
Oh, nice.
So I wake up in a nice hotel on my birthday. And so the best thing about hotels is the breakfast and just eating. Like, of course, I need to have, coffee and a fry up and a continental breakfast and a load of juice and why wouldn't I? What a way to start the day.
Is there an ingredient you pretend to like because everybody else does?
I mean, I went veggie for 5 years, and I didn't like mushrooms at the beginning, but you have to like mushrooms if you're a vegetarian because otherwise you're going to be in trouble. So eventually, I just just worked through it, and now I love mushrooms. So
great. I think that's when you do love mushrooms. That's a good ending.
Yeah.
You're opening a themed restaurant based on your life. What is it called, and what is the signature dish?
A themed restaurant. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why I think this has got anything to do with me, but so when Andy, my business partner, moved to London, he was a jazz musician, and he earned a living playing Phil Collins covers in a Phil Collins themed bar called No Jacket Required. And I don't know why that feels relevant to me, but I kind of feel like that is a vibe, and I'd quite like to get in on that somehow.
Do it together.
Yes, yeah. So we'd a kind of weird themed, just only playing Phil Collins tracks would be great, and like mince and tatties, I suppose, because that's the thing I grew up with. Not jacket potatoes,
so
mince
no
and
jacket
tatties.
Required, and
then no jacket required. Them. Boom, there we go. Hello, yeah.
What's the worst thing you've ever eaten?
Oh, me and my dad did this show called The Parent Trip, and we went to live with this tribe called the Himba in Namibia, and they totally messed it all up, and we went at the wrong time of year, and there'd been like literally a kind of breakdown in lost in translation kind of thing. So we were meant to go there before the rainy season and do a cattle drive, and then somehow we got there afterwards when it was getting hot. And so then like the health and safety got wind of it, that it was like 45 degrees. So they basically just kind of kept us in a compound for 18 hours a day, and we weren't allowed to do anything. And then the rest of the time we were just kind of making stuff up. And then so they sacrificed this goat for us. And then basically we sacrificed the goat, like read all its innards, and then boiled it up in just an old can, and for like 10 minutes, and then went to eat it. And my dad, who can literally eat, like born in 1947, kind of war baby, can eat anything, prides himself on eating anything, food's fuel. He could barely eat this. It was just so gnarly. And
you'd seen it. I mean, for them, obviously, it's a really important moment.
I killed the bloody thing with them, and it was really. I was having a load of trauma about that, which I still try and reconcile, because I think if you're going to eat meat, you should be able to kill your own stuff. And I was involved in killing it, and I really didn't like the feeling of it. But then also, like, we've got a culture of curing the meat or hanging the meat and then seasoning it and so on and so forth. And like, this was just kind of bush tucker basically. Wow. And it was just I don't know, just a whole experience. I think tainted with the bit of I'd just been involved with killing it. Was a bit much. I
imagine that would be quite heavy.
Yeah,
wow. And then our final question for today, which is not quick fire, not that our quick fire questions are actually quick fire. Yeah. They never are. What does good food mean to you?
Food that's been cooked with love. Food that's you're sitting around a table with your friends and your family and people you care about, like preferably on a kind of sunny day. I'd like one of those kind of long rolling lunches that if you're lucky goes into dinner and new people turn up and the reinforcements and you just keep rolling on. Food that's come from a system where like we're looking after nature and everybody in it hasn't been exploited. Like there's a regenerative future on the horizon that's available to all of us. We just got to decide how much we want it, you know.
Yeah,
nice. And you know, we have a massive opportunity to turn the ship around when it comes to the environmental crisis we're facing, and like food's our biggest point of agency in all of that. And if we decide, and we're in a position where we're lucky enough that you know we can make food choices and decide we're going to get stuff that's coming from better farming systems, then I think we're being really naive if we're not doing that.
Great, thank you. And thank you so much. Actually, no, before we finish, obviously it's like a birthday party. Can't get myself a present.
Yes.
So I got you a little present.
Oh, you're a sweet man.
It's also some shameless self-promotion for me as well.
Ah, okay. I've got a feeling I might know what this is then. Look at this. I've got my frozen peas cookbook by Samuel Goldsmith, no less.
So you can make the cake yourself?
Peas, please. Is it in there?
Yeah.
Aha.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, great. Is
So
peas in everything?
Yeah. I hope you like frozen peas.
Do you know what? Genuinely, I love frozen peas.
Good. But also our latest issue of Good Food.
Great. Look, big up your barbecue.
And also the Good Food tote bag. That was instead of wrapping it, because it's easier.
That's great.
Chuck it in a tote bag. It's easier than wrapping it up.
Well, I look forward to getting stuck into this on the way home. Thank you very much.
No, nice to meet you.
It, man. Great. Good vibe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this Good Food podcast. If you'd like to listen to more of our podcasts, search Good Food wherever you listen to your podcasts. For more recipes and inspiration, go to goodfood.com or download our app.